What's up, guys? Sheer Drop Wrestling Team back here with another video. Tonight we are going to be reviewing the episode of Smackdown from this last Friday, the Bray Wyatt tribute show. We've got our whole booth here today, so it's got me, Andy, and then our pal Daniel is able to join us for this one. How's everyone doing?
Doing pretty all right.
Yeah, we're doing pretty good.
Cool, cool. How are we? How are we all feeling about Bray?
Sad.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it.
that was some pretty tough news to hear.
Very.
We were Daniel and I were on the way to the Ghost Show Thursday, and my girlfriend texts me and she's like, "What happened with Bray Wyatt?" Because she's kind of like on the outskirts of wrestling stuff. And I open Twitter, and the first thing I see is Triple H, his tweet that he put out. That everyone's saying this. Everyone kind of had to read it a couple times. Where like the first thing that came up was like Mike Rotunda, Bray's dad, and it's like, oh, okay, I guess Mike Rotunda passed away. And then you read further and further, and it's like, oh no, Bray Wyatt passed. And then you go back and read it, and you're like, are we sure it wasn't like his dad? And then it's like, no, it's Bray. And it's like, damn, like 36.
Way too young, man.
Yeah, absolutely insane.
Yeah.
It's just, it sucks. It's heartbreaking. He's leaving behind obviously his wife and kids, but just I don't know. There's only so much you can say in like situations like this that like someone else hasn't already expressed, and it's just he'll definitely be missed in the wrestling world. He'll be missed not only as Bray Wyatt, but just Wyndham Rotunda the man is going to be
Yeah.
missed as well. Um, so we didn't see a whole lot of him in person, either three of us, but we were there at Extreme Rules when he came back, and I shared the video that I took because thankfully I still had it on my phone of the entire like last couple minutes of the show after it went off the air of his return. And like there was a bunch of cool stuff on that card. He got the loudest reaction of the night, bar none, and all he did was just step out of that box at the end and put the lantern up. And like I it's just, there's not a whole lot of people that get reactions like that. There's not a whole lot of people
No.
that the crowd, no matter what, are going to care like that deeply about. And when he came back and everyone was just so happy to see like what he was going to do, and it just sucks.
Big time. I'm gonna miss him. I was looking forward to, seeing what character work he still had left to put out there, and it is just, like you said, he will be missed just as a person, not just as a performer.
Mm.
Yeah,
So,
there's a lot of just stories and stuff, just him like being a good person as well, just outside of the ring and everything, just
mm.
a genuinely like kind, caring, just human. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're gonna try and do as much of a SmackDown review as we can. Obviously, the episode was just more of a tribute to not only Bray, but we also lost Terry Funk earlier this week. So it was kind of like, just the commemoration episode of SmackDown for the two. And some good feel good moments. Obviously, the good guys won the matches where they should have won, and then a couple heelish exploits throughout the night and stuff. But just overall, it was kind of a feel good ish episode, which honestly is probably the best that we could have asked for given the circumstances.
Yeah.
So we open up with it's kind of like a cold open on like any other TV show. Like the roster is out on the stage, and it's Michael Cole, and he's over just the arena PA talking about how the evening is going to be the commemoration between them, or for Terry and Bray. And then they give the moment of silence, and then the 10 bell salute that they normally do when wrestlers pass on. And then they start with the Bray Wyatt video package, and there's a lot of like intermittent packages spread throughout the night of a lot of different things. But this first package was more of like the all encompassing one. And like, this just sucked to watch because like that's when it really set in that it was like he's gone, you know.
Yeah.
Like it was cool looking back at all of like the Bray stuff and seeing a lot of the behind the scenes and his early NXT work and going back to the old Wyatt family and then the whole Firefly Funhouse and all that other type of stuff, and you're just sitting there and you're like, God damn it, like why?
Yeah. I think that did really kind of make the reality of the situation settle in a good bit more. And I would agree, it was pretty hard to watch. I did enjoy getting to look back at that, but having that reality still lingering over my head of, wow, okay, this is going to be, you know, that's it.
Yeah.
It's hard.
So say I didn't
Yeah.
like cry or anything like that, but same thing as like the when Brody passed in AEW when they did the Brody episode and there was all that type of stuff. It's like, you just get choked up. I legitimately got like misty eyed watching it and stuff. It's just like, why? Like I keep saying that, but like, just why?
It's like that kind of like haunting reality just kind of like it really sets in at that point. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, this is real now, you know, like it's one thing like when we found out and then like reading it on Twitter and things like that and then like, oh, okay, all the superstars are here, all the fans are reacting to this. Like it really just kind of like solidifies it. It's like, wow, this is real. This sucks.
There were I liked that they incorporated a lot more of like the behind the scenes stuff, more
Mm-hmm.
so than like his on screen stuff because like we're all familiar with Bray Wyatt. We know all the stuff that goes on screen, but we don't really know a whole lot about like Wyndham, like the person behind the scenes and stuff like that. And just from all of the tweets and the stories that everyone's been coming out and sharing, he just seems like, he was the most like incredible person. Like it didn't matter where like if you were like talent on the roster or if you were just like a stagehand or something like that. Like he just seemed like he was the most enjoyable person to talk to and the most enjoyable person to be around and just really knew kind of how to like light up that room.
Very, very special indeed. I remember reading a story. It was I believe it was someone back in like the production team, like on like one of their first days. I don't know if you guys saw this story or not, but it was basically this person talking. It was, yeah, like they had just started and they're basically back there like shaking in their boots kind of deal. And Bray was the one who went up to them, gave them like a really quick pep talk and basically like welcomed them into like, hey, you're part of like the WWE family now, like it's gonna be okay. And it just kind of shows really how good of a person he really was.
Yeah. The part that really got me at the end was after like the package was over. The crowd starts singing the whole "He's got the whole world in his hands," and they cut the lights and there's a rocking chair just on the ramp and they put a spotlight on it and stuff and like that's when I started getting like choked up and I was like, just it wasn't it wasn't a good time. Um,
I can agree with that.
yeah. So after that, it immediately cuts to a commercial. We get a little bit of a reprieve. Back after commercial, we get that little bit of the Terry Funk video package, and Michael Cole tells us that Cody Rhodes personally is going to come out and address the fact, just due to the fact that Dusty had so much history with Terry Funk. So it'll be, kind of that moment for Cody to come out and talk about that. But the actual first match of the night that we get is Rey Mysterio and Grayson Waller. Um, I noticed Mysterio didn't have the belt when he came out. He had it at the end of the night. I don't think Santos brought it out when he interfered. Spoiler alert for that part. So just kind of wondering where the belt went, where it came from. Um, but I don't have I don't have a whole lot on anything. It was just more of like I was watching the show as a way to kind of like process and just kind of be distracted and everything. But the bell rings, and this kind of like, lighten the mood for me for a different reason. The bell rings. Mysterio immediately just gets like thrown to the side by Grayson Waller, and Mysterio just looks up at him, and he is just absolutely bewildered that a man that is larger and stronger than him can throw him around, as if like that's not been his whole career, like that's not been his shtick, like the whole time. You'd think he'd get used to it by now. Um, there was that spot also where I don't know what they were going for, where Mysterio's running at Waller when he's in the corner, or running
Mhm.
after Waller into the corner, and Waller tries to do like an up and over, and instead he ends up stomping down on Mysterio's back. I don't know if that was like a miscue or if it was some sort of like slight botch. Arguably, that was probably cooler than what the plan was. I don't know what they were going to do, but the stomp was
Yeah,
a good way out of it. If that was a last minute, like, oh, I forget what I'm supposed to do right now.
I would agree. I mean, it made it into my notes of Waller just stomping Ray into the mat.
Yeah, that was rough. There was that cool spot that's also been floating around on social media. Ray's little tribute to Bray. He did the thing where he did like the side, like hung over to the side, did the clothesline, and then did a just a quick little like senton onto
Yeah,
Waller, and that popped me. I was like, I recognize that. I know what that is. Waller's offense is also just really cool. He has this, like, I don't know what to call it. I just called it an unprettier variation where he jumped over Ray's back and like hooked both of his arms and just did kind of like a face buster.
yeah.
I don't know if he has like a special name for that or whatever, or if it's just a modified face buster, kind of like the unprettier is. But that was sick. That popped me. But towards the end of the match, Austin Theory comes out. He distracts Ray because they have their United States title match at Payback. And then Santos Escobar comes out to attack Theory to kind of help even the odds. And then, Ray hits a 619 on Waller, does the splash, gets the win. So, yeah, I predicted early on, I was like, okay, so we're 100% getting LWO versus Theory and Waller on the go home. And then like 45 minutes later, they're like, this just got added to the card for next week before. I was like, okay, well,
You're not going to guess what it
never going to
is.
guess. Brand
It
new.
remains a
First time
mystery,
ever.
really.
So yeah, I know Daniel, you weren't able to catch too much of SmackDown, but Andy, what'd you
Right,
think
right.
of the opening?
uh, we talking like the opening tribute or just the opening match?
The match.
Match. Okay. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I thought it was pretty good. I have the good few things in my notes. Just Waller absolutely tossing Ray around the ring. I mean, it's not entirely anything too new for Ray, I suppose. What with his career and all, but just that him stomping Ray into that corner looked whether it was a botch or not, it looked real cool and looked like it was meant to happen. I enjoyed it overall. I think it was Waller at some point had hit a really clean counter DDT on Ray. It might have been the other way around. I neglected to write down who hit it, but it was very, very clean.
I have. It seems like they have a lot of high hopes for Waller.
Mm-hmm.
I think if he gets different music, his music just feels like a stock sound effect right now. It doesn't scream anything about his character. Um, it just sounds like the demo on a Casio. But I think if you fix that and maybe do like a little bit of a repackaging with him, I think he's one of those guys that when he was in NXT, I didn't really see anything with him. And then he had that little bit of feud with Gargano. And then he just got called up to main roster. And ever since then, like, he's, done that promo battle or like that promo thing with Cena at Money in the Bank, which went on for like ever. And it was kind of boring. But
Yeah,
he held his own in there with Cena on the mic. And not many people can do that without getting, what, to borrow another ism from Steven Larson, not too many people hang in there with John Cena without getting cry face. because Cena knows how to exploit their weaknesses.
Yeah.
But no, right now he kind of feels like he's in the archetype of like athletic Miz,
Yeah.
where he has like a talk show and he's like all he does is talk shit. But the difference is like this dude seems like he's, you know, super athletic and will do like the big moves and the high spots. Not that the Miz doesn't, but like Miz doesn't do a whole lot of like the high flying or add a whole lot of flair to his moves. Miz is just a
Mhm.
very like, you know, cookie cutter sort of thing. But Waller kind of has that like pizzazz. And then next match was Io versus Zelina. It was a television defense of the women's championship, so it was, you know, kind of telegraphed as how this was going to go. Andy, do you want to cover this one?
I mean, I can do my best.
Okay.
I don't have like a play-by-play or anything, but uh, you know, I believe it was EO and Damage Control were the first ones to come out after a brief interview backstage, discussing their thoughts on how things were going to be going that night with everything, and with EO defending against Zelina. Um, Music hits just about at the end, and they all head out. Zelina comes out. I, for some reason, felt the need to make a note that the announcers just, at least Corey, seemed to be very confused as to why she had headphones on with
Yeah.
ears. I don't know what the significance of pointing that out or why he was so confused about having headphones, but
I think it was like because she brought out the the sandal or whatever, and
yeah,
then Michael Cole
Sure.
said, yeah, and Michael Cole said something about it, and then I guess Corey thought he was talking about the headphones, and then Michael Cole was like, well, if you come from like a Hispanic household, then you know the importance of, you know, the sandal, and then he's like, no, I know about that, and then it's like, I think there was just like a miscommunication, and then he's like, I just wanted to know what was on like her head, and then Michael Cole was like, oh, it's probably something
it's
Andy
headphones,
related.
man.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
It just felt like a fever dream of a conversation between them because they're not focused on like Zelina or like the match at all. They're like, let's talk about the headphones. Like,
Yeah. um. Yeah. I was waiting for. I expected the match kind of to hit it off pretty quick.
mhm.
And it. I mean, they were going at. They were doing their thing and everything, but I was really expecting EO to kind of just start doing her thing. EO Sky hitting the moves in the air and all that. Took a little bit longer, but at one point, what was it? Zelina hit a really clean Meteora on EO, I believe. That was impressive. And then not too long after that, I believe EO had hit a really devastating drop kick on Zelina off of, I believe it was the top rope. Might have been a slingshot going off the mid rope or whatever. She'd also, at one point, Zelina had gone for a code red, but upon hitting the code red, Io just kind of did her thing and rolled right out of the ring.
Yeah.
So she wasn't able to capitalize on that and go for a pin or anything. And I was scared for a moment that we were going to have another count out not too long after that, because I believe they had a little bit of a scuffle outside the ring. And I didn't think they would do it, but part of me was a little scared that we were going to have two countouts on the defense on the same week. Like, let's not do that, please. And then, towards the end of the match, like you said, it was a TV defense, so it was pretty. You could say it was pretty, I can't think of the words you used, but that's the best word to use.
Yeah, I was gonna say your notes pretty much line up with mine. For the time that they had, I thought it was pretty like well paced. Both Io and Zelina are like fast workers, and it just helps bring a match to life when everyone's just going at 100 miles an hour. I also had the note about the Code Red and EO rolling out. So I just love the Code Red. I think it's a cool move.
I
It also
also think it's a
helps
really cool move.
keep Zelina, I guess, strong in like the booking sense, because
Mhm.
like EO didn't like kick out. EO rolled out, and you can interpret that's because EO's like, oh, I'm not gonna be able to kick out of this. Like I'm gonna like roll out, so then I cannot get pinned right now.
Yeah. Instinct working to go, oh, I need to get out of this
I'm
situation
hurt.
right away.
So I hope that this isn't the closing on the EO and Zelina book. I
Mhm.
don't think. I mean, maybe Zelina would be in title contention. She had that match with Rhea, and that went okay when they were in
Yeah.
Puerto Rico. But definitely would love to see more of these two, especially because now Zelina has that like, well, you know, you didn't kick out of my move, like you escaped my move.
Yeah. I would agree with that. I would like to see them in the ring again.
And then
Good building for the
ultimately,
future.
EO just wins with a moonsault, as she is one to do.
Good old over the moonsault.
Over the moonsault. Great name.
Nice to see EO have a pretty decent title run, though.
I really
Yes.
hope they let her run with it for a little while. I think she
Yeah.
absolutely deserves it. She's done a heck of a job in NXT, and since I mean she's only been on main roster for a year, but now she's part of like one of the most I guess notable groups outside of I don't know Bloodline, Judgment Day, and then honestly I'd probably say Damage Control unless there's like someone I'm absolutely missing.
I
I could be
think that's
biased and
kind of
say
your
like Alpha
answer is
Academy,
R.
but I don't.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
think
yeah.
Damage Control has had a lot more screen time and they've been more impactful than any of the Alpha Academy segments. So what was next? We had this is when Cody came out and talked about Terry Funk, and we just get another video package, a more extensive one highlighting his career. And the only note that I really have is it's just weird for me personally seeing young Terry Funk. I'm not a Terry Funk aficionado. ECW is easily like a blind spot for me. I've just never gone back and watched ECW or anything really like any old WWF or WWF like that type of stuff.
Mhm.
Um, or any old like like NWA or like any of the territory stuff. It's all like a blind spot for me. So it's just weird seeing that Terry Funk didn't always look the way that like I know Terry Funk looks, um, like the deathmatch Terry Funk. So that was just cool to see his importance to the world of wrestling as a whole because I wasn't aware of that. I knew he was an important figure, but watching that package and hear people talk about it really broke down of like how important this guy was to the industry and how different the industry would have been without him. And I thought that was cool because I just learned something Friday, and I just like learning about wrestling. I like it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I, as you guys know, I'm a newer to this than either of you are. So I haven't really gone back to watch any old stuff either. So I wasn't really sure who Terry Funk was. I understood that he was, he they had said he spent 50 years in the
Mm-hmm.
business doing things, and I would say that that video package did do a really good job of encapsulating how important he actually was to the entirety of WWE wrestling and the impact that he left.
For sure, for sure. He's
Yeah.
always like in his last couple of years, he was infamous for always having like a retirement match, and then like 6 months later, he'd have another retirement match, and 6 months after that, he'd have another retirement match. Like the dude just like you could tell he was one of those guys that like just loved wrestling, and like whenever he said he was done, he's like, no, I'm not. Change my mind. So
I think
Cody
it's
talks
cool
about.
tying in, like you were saying, like, I think it's cool too, like, you tied in with, like, the education piece of, like, here's how influential this guy was. Like, chances are a good bit of the fans were also learning that at the same time. you know, like if you just start getting into this recently, even like in within the last, I don't know, 15 years, sure, like it's a great way to like see like, hey, here's the history behind like all the cool stuff that we get to see right now. So definitely, yeah, very cool
Yeah.
to see tied in like that. And
So Cody goes on just kind of like a Cody promo where you're not quite sure where it's going to end or when it even really starts. But just going through, he tells the story of how Terry Funk called his dad an egg sucking dog in an airport. And then I forget who it was, but like Terry Funk put that on a T-shirt, like when he wrestled like Dusty, and would come out and just wore a shirt that said "egg sucking dog." Um, the hate was in his veins, I guess. And then Cody says that in Terry Funk's honor, the next match is going to be a Terry Funk Hardcore Rules match. And we get the Brawling Brutes versus the Street Profits. So, I don't know, Andy, if you have this in your notes. I jotted it down. The internet seemed to be in a tirade about this as well. It wasn't very hardcore for it being called a Terry Funk Hardcore Rules match. We got a table spot at the end, and that was about it. I guess before we get into the
Uh,
match, there was actually a reason for that. It's because they were in Kentucky, and the state, like the athletic commission for Kentucky, is super super strict on things like wrestling
um,
and the appearance of blood in sports. And so they had to get a whole like in Kentucky, you'd have to get like a whole bunch of stuff cleared beforehand, or the athletic commission has the absolute right to say like, no, you're not doing this tonight.
mhm.
So the table spot was probably all we were gonna get. It would have been cool, maybe a few kendo sticks, maybe like a chair shot, or like no one's taking unprotected chair shots to the head anymore. Just do the thing where you like hit him in the gut or
Yeah.
whatever. So could have used a little more. The thing that I do agree with online is people could have just, you could have just branded this the Terry Funk Texas Tornado match because it
Yeah.
was already tornado tag rules. There weren't any tag ins or tags out. It was no DQ.
Yeah.
You just didn't have to like put a spotlight on the hardcore word if you weren't actually going to deliver a hardcore match. Um, but that aside, I
Mhm.
thought this was a pretty entertaining match. It was, like I said, Brawling Brutes and Street Profits. It was um, a lot of the faster stuff from Montez Ford and Butch, and then you had Ridge and Dawkins doing like the big man stuff. Were there any? So, do you have any like notes or any like anything of importance that you wrote down for this?
I did have it written down that I appreciated the spot of Rich Holland spinning Butch around like a ladder
The ladder,
in
yep. The
what
Terry
yeah in
Funks,
what
yep.
Terry Funk used to do with ladders. I appreciated that, you know, while they did not really get to do too much extreme or anything given the circumstances, they were still at least able to pay a little bit of tribute to him in what ways they could, including doing that, which I thought was very fitting for the Brawling Brutes,
Mm.
and was just, a good overall tribute.
There was
But
that weird point in the match where, because we're getting this tandem of the Street Profits and Lashley, kind of becoming more of a cohesive group. And so during the match, Bobby Lashley comes out and they're selling it on a commentary like, oh, like the air around this match has changed. Like Lashley's out here now, and they're really selling like the importance of Lashley being out here and how he could get involved with the match. And then it goes to commercial. Like
yep,
while they're trying to get over the importance of Bobby Lashley, and you know, and they're like, yeah, we'll go to commercial. So
yep. But don't worry. The air around this match has changed. We'll get right back to it after
but
these
first,
commercial messages.
so
I'll
now
learn
that
about the new
probably could have
Whopper
happened.
deal at
Like
Burger King.
I know that like they're live and stuff like that, and restrictions and deadlines,
Yeah,
but like couldn't have waited 15 seconds.
yeah.
At least let the man get to like ringside or something. Um, a little bit of a hot take, I think, actually. I know that everyone wants, like, I don't think everyone wants Profits to break up, so to speak,
Hmm.
but I think people want to see the jetpack just absolutely attached to Montez Ford. The dude does have, like, single star written all over him, and I think he absolutely could eventually be, a singles champion or even a world champion. Um, Hot take, these days, Dawkins is kind of impressing me more. So,
Hmm.
like, everyone kind of knows that Montez Ford is Montez Ford, and the dude is just crazy athletic and can do a whole bunch of crazy stuff. But, like, I don't see a whole lot of new stuff, whereas it feels like Dawkins is doing something new every week. Um, I forget who said it. It's one of the people that we normally watch. I think I want to say it's SRS. I want to say
Hmm.
it's Sean from Fightful. That Dawkins always wrestles like a guy who's saying, "Yeah, but what about me?" Like to not get lost in Montez Ford's like spotlight, stuff like that.
Yeah,
He's like, "No, I can go too."
yeah, I would agree with that sentiment.
So, so the finish of the match kind of happens where we go outside the ring, we get tables. It's Butch who's grabbing a table out. I guess in the midst of him taking it out, he accidentally bumps into Bobby Lashley, who's ringside at the announce table, and that just puts Lashley in a bad mood. So he spears Butch out of like his own body on the outside. Doesn't rip his suit. Doesn't do anything. Just spears the man and gets up like absolutely nothing happened. Um, and then so the table's already like set up in the ring. Ridge is kind of distracted by everything that's going on. It is, of course, no DQ, so it's perfectly fine. And then the Profits hit their finish through the table and pin Ridge, and that's the end of that match.
Yeah, I would agree with the fact that it didn't really feel like there was too much to make it extreme or anything. We got, like you said, the table spot to end the match. That was really it, other than it just kind of being a, know, no DQ tag match.
Yeah, I'm never
I
gonna
would
poo
have it,
I'm never gonna
like
poo poo a tornado tag match. They're my
yeah,
favorite type of tag match. I think it's just when you don't have to worry about tags and it's just anywhere from like 4 to 6 to 8 dudes just beating the hell out of each other because they can. Uh, it's just car crash TV. It's super entertaining, especially when you have two teams that are kind of as diametrically opposed as the Brutes and the Profits, especially with their current iteration. It's compelling. I like watching it.
uh, quick aside,
Yeah.
you turned into a robot a little bit there.
Yeah,
Dang. All right.
Yeah.
Well, we're just
yeah,
gonna have to keep
a
doing it
little
then.
freeze frame. But
We'll fix it
yeah,
in
I did want to
post.
say that was like that was like probably the best dressed spear I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Bill
that
Goldberg
man
could
looked
never.
God. Oh, he could not. That man looked way too fly doing that.
I didn't even check and see. Did the shades come off?
Probably
It wouldn't
not.
surprise me if they
Probably
didn't.
not.
No.
What a guy. All right. Last thing on the card for the night is the LA Knight versus Finn Balor match. So a lot of people were drawing the conclusions online. LA Knight was the last person Bray had a match with, and Finn was like the first feud we had with the Fiend character. So kind of like an opening and a closing of a chapter, so to speak. And before the match starts, Knight comes out and just gives like the best promo that I've heard in a long time about the whole situation. And he ties it in character, and you can tell that there's some real stuff in there too. And he talks about that, like, what Bray did for him was he got him ready for any situation. You know, what Bray put him through, like the character Bray Wyatt did to the character LA Knight, got him ready for anything. And you can tell that there was a little more to like that meaning. It was a lot more of like Bray helping Knight like on the main roster and like get accustomed to everything and stuff. And it again just goes to speak to the kind of person that Bray was, you know, on and off screen, and just being completely selfless, it seems, when he needed to be. Knight, of course, gets a huge reaction. I have a little aside
Yeah.
of just, can we actually start billing him from Hagerstown?
Please.
Uh,
Like,
yeah,
like I get, you know, L.A.
not
for L.A.
biased,
Knight
but
and
like,
stuff
yeah,
like that, but like, can we bill him from Hagerstown? We don't really have a whole lot else going on,
No.
so
we got Amazon warehouses.
Uh,
yeah, but that's like a dime a dozen these days.
Yeah,
yeah.
So I don't know. For what it's worth, you know, WWE, if you're watching, do us a favor. Bill him
yeah,
from Hagerstown again. That was pretty cool.
yeah.
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 Speaking of when he was slamming Finn's head into the announce table, he was doing like spots for that, and that popped me. I thought that was a really really nice touch. Um, I put down that seeing Finn on Smackdown was weird. I get that like the whole brand split isn't actually a brand split, and it's not really doing a whole lot, but just I don't know, seeing Finn on the blue brand after Judgment Day has been doing so much stuff on Raw just felt weird.
Especially after this week's Raw, I felt being so heavily focused on the Judgment Day and the inner workings and turmoil that's currently going on with them, too. It is weird to just cut to Friday, and here he is again.
Mm. He did the LA Knight did the thing where he runs, jumps on the top rope, and does like the superplex or whatever. And Michael Cole calls out vintage LA Knight, like the whole like the vintage Randy Orton thing. But like LA Knight's only been on the main roster for like maybe a year.
Yeah,
A little too early to start calling it vintage, especially because he doesn't do it every match. I don't think.
I don't think so.
Um,
I figured he had done some like backlogging research of going back into looking him up in the indies or something. That's what he was referring to as that being like an old finisher or something of him before he got the WWE and all that.
it's
Because
super
I just
impressive though.
yes, but
Having to
I just it
vertical
felt
yourself onto the top rope. Okay. Sure.
The fact that he's doing it in like what he's like early 40s.
I think he's like 40 or 41.
yeah, that
Yeah,
sounds about
like
right.
I can't do that in my late 20s. So good on you, bro.
Yeah. There's not much to the match after that. He hits that spot, and then I think immediately follows it up with like the blunt force trauma once Finn gets on his feet,
Yeah,
and that's it. He pins Finn Balor clean. There's not anything else really that goes into it, and it's kind of the finish that needed to happen just on the night with this sort of non-canon episode of SmackDown. You have anything else that you took for the match?
uh, not really for the match itself. I just have that it was a really good match, and it's always really good to see two people who can hold their own
Mm.
in the ring together, just doing their thing and putting on a good match. My closing notes are yeah. At one point, I did notice that for some reason the ref had gloves on.
Yeah,
I didn't
Knight
see.
got busted open at some point.
Okay, okay. I didn't see any color or anything going on, so that's why I was a little confused. I figured that's what had happened because that's the whole protocol is once that someone gets busted open, you throw the gloves on and all
Yeah, it
for
was like
safety.
somewhere
But
like high up in like his hairline. Like the camera cut to it once and you could see just a little bit of red, but
mhm,
it seemed it was either like wiped away really fast or it was something small and it like closed
just a
up. But
good.
I didn't see it at the end of the match or anything else like that, or maybe I'm just blind. But
I could understand that. I am so. I did have in my notes before the match, after LA Knight had done his promo, paying tribute to Bray, and had gone in a bit on his whole story that they're leading to with the upcoming. I believe it's happening at the pay per view, not the next SmackDown. Him versus Miz.
yeah, it's at Payback.
Him just tearing Miz to shreds
Yeah,
on the mic. Relentlessly tearing him apart.
I think standout line of that for me was I don't know if you would know anything, Daniel. I'm not even sure if you would know anything about Damian Sandow.
No, actually, name doesn't ring a bell.
Okay, so he did this thing for a while where he was Miz's stunt double. He was called Damian Mizdow. Um, and he got more over than Miz doing the exact same stuff Miz was doing. But it was funny because Miz would do it and then he'd do it, but more over. So there was the standout line in LA Knight's promo where he was like, WWE gave you a stunt man and he got more over than you. Just it was a pretty thorough shredding.
Yeah.
Yeah, that promo kind of there's that perfect balance too of like this is one just like a really good promo, but then also like a very good tribute as well. Like he
Mm,
just I feel like he just like perfectly nailed that balance of like in character, out of character, everything just kind of like fell together very, very well. And then of course everything going around on like the very last line of like the run at the
yeah,
end.
yeah.
Kind of just
Like
that little
Miz,
cherry on top of like yeah.
like what was it? Like Miz, next time you see me, a fine man once told me run or something like that. And it's like,
Yeah, yeah.
it was so good.
He yeah, the fact that he sounded like identical
Yeah, he
to
put a
Bray
lot of
with that
gravel in his
run
voice
there.
for that.
Yeah, yeah. So that was kind of like a very like just kind of like solidified it. It was like, all right, yeah, this was the right thing to
Mm.
happen, and it was executed perfectly.
And it also shows a lot like of faith that they have in LA Knight to just go out and they're like, here's a microphone. Say whatever you need to say right now. Like it definitely felt, unscripted. It felt like he had bullet points and it felt like he
Mhm.
just went off of like emotion.
Yeah.
After the match, the lights in the this also got me. The lights in the arena went out fiend style. And then there's the lantern lit in the ring and it shows a picture of Bray up on the Tron and stuff. And my dumbass, when the lights first started going out, I was like, "Oh, Bray Wyatt," and then I remembered, and I'm like, "Oh, like just it was a rough night for me."
Yeah. I do think that was a good way to uh, capstone
Mm.
the night. The, just one
Yeah,
final time of having those lights cut out and then having the lamp sitting there with the big shot of Bray up on the big screen.
And then the
really
show.
kind of just has it hit home again. Yeah,
Mm. And the whole crowd chanting the thank you Bray, and then it just kind of fades out on that, and that's how like the show goes off the air and stuff. So that was the SmackDown review. So you guys just want to talk about Bray Wyatt for a little bit?
Yeah, that's
yeah,
Bray
fine.
Wyatt moments.
yeah.
I already touched on the fact that we were at his return and stuff like that. But do you guys have any other notable, I guess, Bray Wyatt moments from the stuff that you've seen throughout the years?
Just kind of his creativity in general. Like he's always been one to be doing that, like more like edgier side of thing. Of course, the darker
Mm-hmm.
themes, the Firefly Funhouse, the Fiend, of course. But like he did it so well, and like the characters almost just seemed like it just like came super like just naturally to him.
Mm-hmm.
It's just Oh, even if you would say like, oh, maybe the match wasn't like the most exciting or things like that, like it was still like he had that entertainment value around him as well. He just kind of had that like aura of like, yeah, this is an entertaining person to just watch too. So,
Yeah,
but I guess favorite moment would also be that it's I mean it's the return in Philly. We saw it live, so it has to be.
yeah.
It's just incredible like energy there. So
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. In terms of character work, I always felt Bray did such a great job and always had such a strong heading leading towards what he wanted to do, even if other people might not quite understand what's going on. He had some sort of plan going on with it and was gonna bring it and wrap it all back around. And I was a huge fan of the whole Firefly Funhouse Bray. Probably some of my favorite moments were that, but I would also say, you know, the feeling like we're getting worked because we're not sure if Bray's going to be actually coming out when we were at
Yeah.
Philly at his return,
And
and
then,
then
because it was what, like every pay per view, everyone's like, "This is the one. He's coming back. We mean it this time." And like he never did. And then I didn't hear anything for Extreme Rules. And then literally, like at the end of the night, it's like, okay. And then the lights go out. Everyone's like, "Oh, oh, he's here."
it was
Obviously, the return at Extreme Rules was cool. Um, I mean, it got like holy shit chance. Like, when was the last time someone's return generated like that visceral of a response? Or even the first entrance of the Fiend when we saw like that first match. I believe it was with Finn. That first entrance, it also gets holy shit chance. It's like it's just the entrance, like, but it was just so cool and like unique, and it just felt so like Bray.
yeah,
Um, what else? At Extreme Rules 20, it was either 2015 or 2016. I don't remember which one it was, but they were in Baltimore, and he was part of the like the five way to determine whoever the number one contender for Lesnar was at the next pay per view. The match ended up getting won by Samoa Joe, which I'm not going to complain about because that gave us the Joe Lesnar feud. That is fire. Joe should have won that still. I stand by that. Um, but he was in that match, and he got a few like high spots in. I'm trying to remember. I don't remember if he did the senton and that's what put someone through the table, or if Rollins did a like a frog splash and put someone through a table. It might have been Bray that ate the frog splash. I'm not quite sure. I just remember Bray was involved in the match, and I got to do the thing with my phone where I was like part of the Fireflies, and it was so cool, just like being there and hearing. That was when he had like his first theme, and he was still doing kind of like the cult leader Bray Wyatt stuff, and like it's one of those things that like you on TV it doesn't translate, and then when you're there, you just like feel it, and you're like, oh, I get it now. That was just super cool.
one thing I was seeing like in the days following last Thursday was how far his reach went as well, just like as a person and as an entertainer. I remember I saw a clip of Chris Jericho was playing it was a Fozzy show, and he did like a quick tribute, and then the whole crowd there started singing The Whole World in His
Mm-hmm.
Hands. There was a clip online of like a soccer stadium over in Europe somewhere, and like they all just started belting it out as like a tribute, and it was like, it was really kind of just goes to show how influential and like how even just beyond wrestling he really was. So
Because I watch like all of like the other like the larger platforms that talk about wrestling and the wrestling media and journalists and stuff, and like when people put in super chats and stuff like that, you always hear about so many like jaded fans, and they're like, yeah, Bray Wyatt's the like got me back into wrestling, or Bray Wyatt got me into wrestling, just because the dude was doing character work at the time that like no one else was doing. It wasn't anywhere else on the roster, and it just kind of that weird kind of like culty dark aesthetic and like wrestling fan kind of like the Venn diagram is almost like a perfect circle in that regard. And just like you said, his reach and just how many actual people he brought into the sport, just being on the outskirts and just looking like a cool guy, and like seeing all the stuff that he was doing, it can't be understated like how important he was in just his not even I mean, I'm trying to think about how long he was even like on main roster. It was like maybe a little over a decade if you don't count his the time that he was fired and then brought back. I still don't know why you fire Bray Wyatt, but that's, you know, not important right now. But just seeing just his reach and like everything that he did, it's just it can't be stated enough like how great he was to the sport and the industry.
Yeah. It's like it's a pretty tough thing to just grapple with and to like have kind of hit like like, oh, moving forward, like we're not gonna see anything more from him. Like we're not gonna have a return. See like, oh, is the Fiend gonna come back? Who's he gonna feud with? Like no, it's very sobering. It's tough. Yeah.
I don't know if you guys have seen it. There's this thing kind of floating around the social media sphere of wanting to see um, Uncle Howdy, oh, excuse me, Uncle Howdy kind of continue the Bray story. Because if you guys didn't know, Uncle Howdy was being played by Bo Dallas, who is, you know, Bray's actual brother and stuff like that. So I don't know. Do you guys like? It's very polarizing. There's people that say like absolutely the story needs to go out on a high note. Like this needs to happen for like Bo. Or there's people that are like without Wyatt's input, it's gonna be like a dumpster fire. Like don't touch it. Just appreciate what we got. Um,
Heard a little bit about that. I mean, it's tough because I mean, those are two very valid points,
mm,
but ultimately, I think it comes down, and personally, I think it should come down to the people like Bo himself and like family surrounding that. Like, okay, they're the ones who are going to know Bray best. Like, what do they really honestly think Bray would have wanted in this, scenario? And who knows, maybe they know the answer. Maybe it was talked about, something like that. So I think that should be a decision for one's closest to him to decide. And like if they want to come out and say like why their decision was, why they're or not, that's ultimately up to them. But like I think kind of going into the understanding like, hey, if there is a decision about this, it's probably coming from them. And like if that is the family's wishes, I think that should be respected regardless, based on the decision, whatever it is. I mean, it's the people who were closest to him and knew him best that made that choice. So,
mm,
Yeah, I would agree with that. As much as I would like to see, you know, a bit of a continuation with it from Bo and everything, I do agree that it should be left up to Bo and his and the rest of Bray's family as to, you know, whether or not they'd like to see his legacy continue in any sort of way, including his story or anything of that sort. Um, and that, yeah, possibly, something might have been talked about. Can never really know. Um, so I'm not going to keep my hopes up like, yeah, we're definitely going to get something, but I'll be happy to see it and will appreciate what we would get if we get anything. And if we don't, I can also respect that and appreciate that as well.
I gotcha. I think I'm probably in the same boat as you guys. As much as I would love to see something done with it, I don't want to say like, oh, it'd be a good palate cleanser, because that sounds very like, I can't think of the word right now, but like it seems like we're just like deflecting from the subject. But I think like just seeing as like getting a conclusion for kind of like that story, I think would also help, everyone kind of tie up those ends. But at the same time, it's like if it's mishandled and stuff like that, it's like this is like probably the last thing we should have done, like with everything. So it's just kind of one of those things.
You got to be really careful with it
Hmm.
because, like I just said, like with tying up loose ends, it could kind of provide, you know, people who only knew Bray, who didn't know him, didn't know Wyndham, they knew Bray, and so the fans could kind of have some form of closure. But of course, like you said, also if it's mishandled, that's arguably even worse because it's like, okay, now it's you want to respect a legacy, not mishandle it in that way. So
Yeah.
All right. Well, does anyone else have anything for the class?
No, don't believe so. I think we did a
we
pretty
eat
good
some
job of.
cupcakes.
Let's go. All right. Well, a little bit of a downer this episode. Um, we'll just kind of see what's on the horizon for everything here. We've got Payback coming up. Uh, not today. Today was, what was it? The Wembley show for AEW. I had to work. I didn't catch any of that, unfortunately. Uh,
I'm curious as to the whole MJF and Adam Cole thing, how that plays out. Because I don't know if you guys saw, but they did get the tag championships, so they are tag team champions, and then they just immediately feud for the EW championship. So
I
that's
saw,
fun.
yeah, I saw that they won the Ring of Honor tags, and then MJF obviously kept or like retained. Excuse me. But it'll be interesting to see where that goes. I guess next things, like I said, slated for us is Payback. So we'll try and get some Payback predictions up. Now that the card's a little more fleshed out, it's probably pretty close to complete. They might have maybe something else added. I could see maybe on Monday they add Gunther and Chad for the title again,
Hey man, I'll take it.
which
I'll take it.
I did want to
It'd be
put out a
fun.
note.
Yeah.
So, Andy, on our Raw review, we got our dates wrong. So,
Oh.
Gunther won't break the record until after Payback. So it's the week after
Okay.
Payback where he breaks the record. So
Okay.
thankfully, we're not big enough that like people are like calling out our shit.
Yeah.
But
We can catch
we
ourselves.
got something on the way. So we're off to a good start.
I wasn't there, so everyone boo these men.
All right, but until next time, if you guys like what you see, like what you hear, you can always like the video, comment, say the things we miss, like the whole Gunther Chad Gable thing, make me look stupid. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We're gonna try and keep churning out at least Raw and SmackDown reviews. If anything changes, we can maybe think about adding some other stuff. But yeah, until next time, the Sheer Drop Wrestling team signing out.